and welcome to episode 16 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham, excited to be with you today, Brian, during this pandemic of hell. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, considering it's hell.
Have you gone for a walk in my neighborhood lately? How many walks have you gone on in my neighborhood now?
Well, I did go for one more walk in your neighborhood.
So how many is that?
That's 3 now.
Did you cover the whole thing, or where did we get with
No,
that?
I think I got to go back one more time.
Really?
So I actually, so I started down in the south in the projects.
Oh.
And then I walked north up to your house, and I could have walked past your house, but I thought that would be weird. So I just went on the crescent that's just north of your house and managed to bypass your house.
Well, yeah, I understand the feeling of that being weird, of James walking by. I certainly couldn't do it to you because you've got the Tesla recording me from 7 different angles.
That's true. Yeah, you would show up on sentry mode for sure.
Well, you have permission to go by my house. I mean, it's not like I leave my house. It's or even look out my front windows. But
that's true. You probably mostly are looking out the back.
Yeah, always small windows, little tiny windows on the front, giant windows in the back, because of the solar aspect of the house, the solar heating aspect of it, and it's working out nicely.
Yeah, and so I walked past that. As you mentioned before, there's a big field behind your house, and it carries some pipelines. So I walked past the kind of pipeline area.
Did you see the signs?
The signs, I took a picture of the signs, and one of them says it's an oil pipeline, and the other two are like, one of them butane or something?
Yeah, that's the good one that's heavier than air that we won't know until it blows up, my neighbor says.
Why do they have a butane pipeline?
It's going directly to the Bic lighter factory in Des Moines, Iowa.
You are got to be joking me.
Well, I am. But I have no idea why there's a pipeline for butane. But that's the only thing that I know that it's used in is lighters, so.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the rum runners used to come up from Chicago to Moose Jaw near us, so you never know.
Well, I feel like you've been exploiting my neighborhood more than you would other neighborhoods. There's nothing really interesting about my neighborhood other than it's a forgotten neighborhood with only 1 or 2 exits that's sort of placed on the north end of the city and forgotten about after the freeway.
Yeah, and then after I left your neighborhood, I got in the car and I sort of drove along 12th Avenue. There's that new part of 12th Avenue past your house where it starts to head north, and I'd never been on there,
That's
so I just
not
sort
new,
of
Brian. That's not
Is
new.
not that new?
No.
It must have been repaved recently.
It was repaved, yes. And it was worse than gravel before it was repaved for 10 years.
All right, so what do you got coming up for us this week, James?
Brian, I'm very excited. I'm glad you asked because I have an exciting new feature.
A new segment for the show?
Yes.
Wow.
It's called the Rapid Fire Round. And I have a 40% confidence that it'll be so good that we'll do it again in the future. That's about a 40% confidence level.
Okay, fantastic.
And I could be wrong, but here's what we're going to do with it. I'm gonna just read you some headlines that really we won't get into, and if you have a reaction to them, fine. You might just say, "Oh, that's good news, good to hear," or "I have no thoughts on that." Next, or something like that.
Okay, so we'll do that later?
Sure. The onus will be on you to respond, though, I'm afraid. So.
Yeah, that's fine. And I've got the return of Brian's Movie Corner coming up.
Oh, really? I did not think that segment would be coming back. Brian's, well, at least not this soon. I thought maybe, Christmas or something, but this is a big surprise.
All right, so I just want to look at a couple of news stories here. So Volkswagen put out an announcement that they're switching to an agency approach for selling their electric cars. Did you read that story?
No.
Well, it's basically, Volkswagen has invested a lot of money in electric cars. They're most not out yet, but they're coming out soon. And basically, it's switching to more of a Tesla model for selling these cars, where you will do the initial purchase through the Volkswagen website, and then you'll select a retailer, and they'll kind of finish up the sale for you. So they're not going to sell them like they sell other VW cars, where you have to go and talk to a salesman, and the salesman has to go talk to his manager, and let's see what price I can do, blah, blah, blah. They're getting rid of all that, and they're hoping that it solves some of the problems that people have had buying electric cars, because you have all these dealers that sell, a limited supply of electric cars and all these gasoline cars. And of course, as soon as they get you into the showroom, they start trying to sell you the gasoline cars because that's what they have a lot of.
And that's what they know. And
that's what they know, yeah.
And the conspiracy theorists would say that they want to, make money off the service of combustion vehicles. So it's kind of like Tesla, because you can buy a Tesla online, and then Tesla has a few stores, but not as many as there are Volkswagen dealerships. So, I mean, is the idea to that the people online are just going to know more that you're dealing with, or how does that work?
Well, that's part of it, yeah, because, it's a different age for purchasing things. It used to be there was a time maybe when you relied on a salesperson, at a car dealership or anywhere to have some knowledge and kind of help you get the right car, the right product. But I know, you and I have had similar experiences with this kind of thing, in the internet age in the last, 10 or 20 years. You just spend 20 minutes on the internet researching a product, and you often end up knowing more than the salespeople do. So, yeah, I absolutely think that's part of it.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's never more true than with electric cars. So, because they are, the most complex things to talk about. It's not just like an iPhone or something.
Yeah, for sure.
So I find that interesting, but I know Volkswagen is they're stockpiling their cars. They got the VW i3, right, which is their every person's car, and it's a hatchback. It's practical. It's the type of thing that Europeans drive without complaint, and they're stockpiling thousands and thousands of them and releasing them. I thought they were supposed to release them in July or something. Isn't that right?
It's coming up soon, yeah, the Volkswagen ID3, and they're going to start selling it in Europe and, won't be coming to North America anytime soon. But, yeah, they're stockpiling them. Word is that maybe their software needs a bit more work, but those will start flooding out sometime this summer.
Right. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to, more EVs on the road, although I want to say something. I want to say something difficult here. I am disappointed that it took 70% of your 402-kilometer range to go your 2-hour journey to your cottage. Are you disappointed?
Well, I think slightly disappointed, but, it's really just a matter of adjusting to a different way of doing things. Gasoline cars give you an estimated range as well, which is often not correct either. It's just... since the range is generally smaller than a gas car, it matters a little bit more. But no, and it's you don't ever get the rated gas mileage of a gas car either, right? Like they publish fuel economy statistics, and those are always wrong. So it's similar to that. You're not getting the full rating of the car, particularly for highway travel, because you're not getting any regen on the brakes or anything. So you'd probably get the stated range more likely driving in the city than you would on the country.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and maybe beyond even in the city. I think the biggest question around electric vehicles is always how much range do you need? And because when we reach that range at an affordable price, then the world starts to flip, right? It starts to change. So. Yeah. I've always wondered what that question was for me personally and for people in general. Now, Frederick from Electric, the website that covers this sort of thing more than anything else, has been on the record lately saying we don't need more than 400 kilometers range because, and he lives in Quebec, so his winters are long and snowy, but they're not as quite temperature harsh as we have here in the prairies. But he was going on about 400 kilometers range, and I have to say, Frederick, I disagree. I don't think that's the number. And why I wanted to talk about this with you is because my view on this is constantly changing. It's evolving, and I'm wondering if your view has evolved. If you could take out the fact that you spent a fortune on this Model 3, and by the way, they went down in price today. Did you see that?
I was going to mention that, yeah.
Yeah, well, if you could take that out of the picture, the fact that you just bought the car, and would you, in an ideal world, not recommend a 400-kilometer car for, say, somewhere like Saskatchewan? Or would you?
It's a little bit on the edge, but I think any issues will be solved within a year or two when more charging stations are built out. Yeah, I think 500 or 600 is more ideal, and eventually we'll get there. I think technically, Fred is correct. 400 in 99% of situations is going to be fine, but it's hard to convince people of that, because partly also just what we're used to, right? With gas cars typically doing 500 or 600 kilometers easily.
People want the car that covers 100% of what they'll ever do.
Yeah, which has always been one of my pet peeves about buying cars, because we tend to buy small cars. But yeah, most people, they tend to buy a car that's bigger than they need because once every 5 years, they go on some kind of trip where they need that kind of storage. Yeah, I just don't buy that. I think you should buy a small car, and if on the off chance you need a bigger one, just go out and rent it.
Yeah, and people don't like doing that. At least around here, they don't. Probably other places, they're a lot more acceptable to doing that. I mean, I know people who have Nissan Leafs, like old Nissan Leafs, that will just rent a car for their vacation.
Yeah.
But that's a bit pricey, and it's a bit out of your control at times. But yeah, no, my thinking, and Brian, you have not survived a winter with an electric car yet. No. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that your range, you were complaining about your range at like -5 or something, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely better now that it's warm out.
Oh, yes. We're in the sweet spot now. My thinking has changed, and I'll be on the record as saying this, and I think you might even agree with me 1 year from now when you've done one winter in your electric car. I think for Canadians, the number is different than it is for Americans. I think you have to have... I would say at least 30% more in Canada to cover the 45% range loss in the winter.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 600 to 700 kilometers range.
Yeah, that's ideal. And of course, Canada is a very large country, so we have longer distances between our cities than maybe any other country on Earth, perhaps. So yeah, I think that's true. We need more range here in Canada.
Now, the problem, of course, is that when you get that sort of range, you're carrying around a massive battery, doing these things that you don't need that range for most of the time. So that's kind of, you have to be careful with that. But I'm starting to think that, I mean, you won't have any problem. I manage fine with like 120 kilometers range with my. Sometimes I plug it in twice a day in the wintertime. I mean, I will plug it in.
But using it as a city car, then sure.
Yeah, and in a small city. Not everybody lives in a small city where you're 15, 20 minutes away from everything. However, it does get very cold here, and I think 300 kilometers. You want to never have range anxiety. I had range anxiety on my electric bike the other day. Wondering if I would. I told you it was about the same thing we talked about last week going out of the country, but it was just kind of funny to have range anxiety on a bike because it is kind of a beast to pedal without the electricity. So,
but I think it is kind of that issue where people always get more vehicle than they need, and so the 400 kilometer range I think is fine for a lot of the time, but you want to be more comfortable. You want to have extra. But the other nice thing too to have a smaller range is you have a smaller battery, which means it takes less time to charge up. It's only a 50 kilowatt hour battery that I have, so to get a full charge is going to take a lot less time than a car with a 100 kilowatt hour battery.
So yeah, I think in the new Nissan Leafs, you can't control the state of charge. You have to charge to 100%. Or what it calls 100%, which it's probably got some buffer in there, because remember when we talk about batteries, the sweet spot is roughly between 20 and 80 or 40 and 80% of the charge. You don't want to leave it sitting around at 100%. So if the bigger battery you have, the less charging you have to do, which is nice. So your battery maintains its performance longer, although that's not really an issue with Teslas. And the other thing is that you just you charge less, and then you don't have to worry about it, because you can charge it to 80% and not have to Not have to worry about your range. That's my thought. Anyway, we'll discuss this again after you've got a winter in your belt or the first minus 40 day.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the other news story I wanted to talk about, you mentioned it already, that has been a price drop on the Tesla vehicles. So the car I bought is now $3,000 cheaper
Have
in
you
Canada.
confirmed that? Is that the Canadian website it's gone down to?
Yes, I confirmed that. It's $2,000 for the same model, and then the Model S and X are cheaper by $7,000 in Canada, $5,000 in the US.
We're recording this and airing it on the day that the SpaceX is sending a first humans into space from North America since the shuttle problems, right?
Yeah, it's been 9 years since there's been
Is that a
manned
coincidence?
spaceflight what do you mean, the price drops?
Yeah, the price drops because they're going to be driving the astronauts out to the spaceship in a Model X.
In a Tesla.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah. And I was watching the start of the broadcast, and they already mentioned the Model X in the first 2 minutes of the
Be like
broadcast.
if Ford was making spaceships, they'd be coming out in an F-150.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this to me, well, two things. One is how much news that Musk is able to generate through his, SpaceX and Tesla. That there's something to talk about every week. It's kind of crazy. And they're big things like manned spaceflight. But the other thing I thought was fun about it, just watching the beginning of the broadcast. So there's 2 astronauts going up today, and their names are Bob and Doug.
Are they really?
Shades of Bob and Doug McKenzie from SCTV.
The Canadian hoser, goofball, beer drinking, donut eating, time filling dudes from SCTV from many years ago.
Yeah, so that put a smile on my face.
Doesn't give me confidence, though, Brian. It does not give me confidence. You know what? I saw an e-bike on North Broad Street the other day, come to think of it.
Oh, great.
I saw, it was sort of this, picture that told a story that was a split second, but I saw a husband getting onto it, and his wife was sort of assisting him. They were middle-aged, and it looked like it was their first voyage, and they were gathering around for this big event, and I just happened to catch a glimpse of it. It looked like one of the Walmart bikes, but they kind of look like a lot of bikes, so it's hard to say.
And I want to mention another thing about...
I saw the unicycle. I saw the the guys must be at the park constantly uniting around.
It's probably the same guy. I'm assuming the same guys.
Because it was like 7 o'clock at night. You saw him in the morning, right?
Yeah. So he's probably just going up and down the bike path that runs through the city.
Why? Why, I ask? Just to get as a conversation starter? Is it for the ladies? What's it for? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I have no idea. But just to wrap up the range thing for a second, I was going to mention BMW had a program for a while where if you bought one of their electric cars, the little small i3 with not a huge range, they had a program where if you wanted to go on a road trip, you would just drive your i3 into the dealership, park it there, and then they would loan you a gasoline BMW for longer trips.
I did not know that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, because the i3 had was probably comparable to my Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the i3, and they were sort of... I think you could get one for maybe $20,000 when I was shopping a couple of years ago. Used one, which was significantly less than the 50 probably I think they cost.
Yeah, quite expensive new.
But here's the deal, though. Apparently, if the bumpers are carbon fiber to make the vehicle light, so if you get a nick anywhere, it's like a huge amount of money. And I don't know what the insurance would be if the insurance sort of deals with that.
Yeah, I guess, well, probably if you just got a quote, it would tell you, and it's probably more than normal insurance.
Well, Brian, on a personal note, I am feeling conflicted and sad. Conflicted and sad. Last week we discussed it. It was me plating my SUV, and I went ahead and I plated my SUV. I took the kids to the South A&W in it, roof open, because it's got a sunroof. It's an old SUV that's 17 years old, but it's a luxury SUV, so it's kind of a sweet ride in a way. And it it was guzzling and clonking along, and I don't want to unplate my Leaf. So I haven't unplated my Leaf yet. I'm paying $3 a day for the SUV just to have a bike rack that I can attach to the hitch. And I'm paying $3 a day for the Leaf. And I keep telling myself, well, gas also shot up as the second I did this. It shot up 15, 16 cents a liter. And that was, it's premium gas, so it makes a difference. And it's an SUV. So I thought, well, at least at 80 cents I could, but now it's like $1. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling myself, well, one ride in the SUV costs $3. So I could just pay for my Leaf, but I'm cherishing my Leaf more. And I priced out a hitch for the Leaf at the U-Haul. Well, I did that once before. So they do this all the time. Even though the people there are like oil change people, they're idiots just out of jail and barely know what they're doing. I'm sorry, U-Haul, but
I'll tell them you said that. Yeah,
it's true, and it's a hell place to go. I wouldn't want to go there during a pandemic because you stand in line for an hour and nothing happens. So it was like $280 or something like that with tax to have it. I can schedule an appointment online and have it done, and they know they might run for the model. And there's nothing particularly special about it. I mean, other vehicles you have to take off the muffler partially or just detach it and put the hitch underneath the muffler and put the muffler back on its rubbery pull things. So you wouldn't have to do that here, but still kind of worried about them screwing it up somehow. Anyway, that's about the price of a bike rack, a price of a good bike rack. And I've already got the hitch-mounted one, which carries 4 bikes, of any weight, basically, and no problem at all. So I'm contemplating doing that because I'm wondering, how many trips in the SUV would it take? I still want to plate it to go on a camping trip possibly, or possibly just like a day trip to take kayaks out to the local beach or something like that. I don't even know if people are doing that. Are beaches technically closed still in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure.
I think the beaches are closed, but the parks are open. I know the people who do mountain bikings are allowed to do one mountain biking person at a time on the provincial park trails. So I have a feeling the beaches are still closed and probably will be.
And of course, the more you drive the SUV, the greater the chances that something's going to go wrong with it and you'll need to pay for a big repair.
That's what I'm worried about because I don't even know if I want to pay for the big repair, but I'm just trying to. My son kept saying, well, let me have the SUV. I'll buy it off you. And and I don't want to do that. And it was like that with our minivan we had before. I sold that for $500, and that was a couple of years before he turned 16. But I didn't want him to have to, he has no idea of driving a shitty vehicle, the car repairs. These people don't know. They don't know. The kids these days, they don't know,
No, and, you're a pessimist. He's probably an optimist, so he's probably thinking it'll be fine.
He's young. He thinks he can live forever. He thinks his cars can live forever. The fact is the tow truck would bankrupt the boy, I mean, it'd be $100. Let's not kid around. An oil change is $100. It's everything's $100, and he doesn't have that many $100. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm thinking of doing it, but because I haven't used the SUV yet. I've used it just once, and it's pissing me off.
All right, well, let's get back to Brian's Movie Corner.
Oh, my God. Brian's Movie Corner.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to give another shout out to Don. It was his idea. We're shouting out to Don pretty much every week now, it seems.
Oh, Don.
But I thought, I thought this was really interesting. He had a fun point about the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth. Okay. So this relates back to Elon Musk again, but people are often comparing Elon Musk to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Man from the Iron Man movies. But Don pointed out he's more like The Man Who Fell to Earth. This is a David Bowie movie from 1976. It was the first movie that David Bowie acted in, directed by Nicholas Roeg. And I'd actually never seen the film. It was one of those films I'd always kind of been meaning to see. And after Don's comment, I thought, I'll have a look at that. And it's kind of true. So the plot, such as it is this spaceman comes to Earth, and it's David Bowie, and he disguises himself as a human. And he's there because his home planet is turning into a desert. They're losing all their water. So he's gone on some exploratory mission to a planet that's got lots of water, which is Earth, hoping to somehow save his own planet. but he crash lands and he needs to get back to Earth. Like his spaceship, it either crashes or it's just a one-way trip. So to get back to his home planet, he has all this alien technology that he's able to sell and make money off of. The main one they talk about in the film is a camera that has instant developing film. Like you just pull the roll of film out and the pictures are already on it.
Okay.
And this is a film from 1976, so this was a really big deal back then. So yeah, the whole film, he's just trying to use these giant corporations and his alien technology to make enough money to build a spaceship to go back to his home planet.
Huh. Seems like that should have been done before, and I guess it was.
Now, the caveat is, I don't think it's a very good film,
Okay.
but
you
it was probably a cool deal in 1976 when it came out. But
so Dawn is implying that Elon Musk is an alien.
yeah, Musk is an alien who's just trying to earn enough money to get back to his home planet.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Tesla employees are complaining about working conditions at the Fremont factory. They're calling it a modern-day sweatshop. How do you feel about that?
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, they should probably unionize.
And he's against that.
Yeah, but all corporations are against that. So it's always a hurdle to overcome, but hopefully they can do it someday.
My question, though, I feel bad about this, and this is combined with his erratic behavior recently. Yeah, I just, I feel like, his brand is going down with me. This is the problem that I have with Elon Musk and Tesla, as far as the idea of me putting my life savings into Tesla stock, is that I know fundamentally it's a good idea, but there's also this wild card of the guy who's running it, who could, according to my instincts, go batshit over the hill any day,
Yeah.
And I realize, as a fellow genius, that these things can happen, that people have bad moments and make big mistakes in life. This podcast, possibly one of them. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I kid. Are we ready, Brian? Are we ready to move on to the rapid fire round?
Let's do
I'm
it.
talking about it like it's a regular segment, like we've done it before. Now it's time for the rapid fire round with James Whittingham, rapidly firing at Brian Stockton. Brian, Planet of the Humans was taken down from YouTube due to a copyright claim from a wildlife photographer. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts about that. Because I am a filmmaker, the issue at hand is something called like the fair use laws. So this will sort of remain to be settled in court, but when you're a documentary filmmaker, you often have to use pictures or video materials from other people to make your films. And this is often covered by fair use laws. So if you're making a documentary and it's, educational in nature, you can take sometimes footage, even like from a Disney movie, if you want to, put it in your movie and claim that it's fair use. Because as artists, as documentarians, we need to be able to use other people's material to do our work. Now, Disney can always sue you and ask to, and probably would, but there's a famous case of there's a guy who made a film surreptitiously inside of Disneyland or Disney World, one of the theme parks.
Oh yeah.
He and his people got a crew together of small people, and they shot it on phones or something, and they went into Disney World and made an entire movie inside the park. And, he finished it, he put it into some film festivals, and everyone said to him, "Oh man, it's a good movie. Too bad you'll never be able to release it," because the implication being that Disney would never allow it. Anyway, he got the right lawyer, and the right lawyer looked at it and said, no, you can totally do that. Just put a disclaimer on it or something like this. So I'm a big proponent of fair use laws. I think it's really important that documentary filmmakers be able to use other people's material. It's one of these kind of free speech things that's really important. So in this particular case, I don't know the details, so I don't know who's going to win. But yes, it was footage, right? That they had used somebody else's footage for Planet of the Humans.
Yeah.
So It's I don't know the details, but it's quite possible this is covered by fair use laws, and the Planet of the Humans people will win the case, and it'll get back up there, or they'll be able to just take the footage out and put it back up as well. So, it remains to be seen.
Do you think that maybe it was because the person who owned the footage was against the film?
Oh, yeah, and he said so. He said, I don't agree with the film, and I don't agree that my footage is being used to promote this horrible message that I don't like. And so, like that was his...
When Van Halen has their song played at a Trump rally or something,
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. And sometimes you can win those cases, and sometimes you can't. But, it all depends on how the court interprets the fair use laws.
Okay. So there was a report out that the Model 3 dash visualization, which is part of their self-driving suite, and it will show pedestrians, it will show a motorcycle, it will show a truck and a car and visualize them appropriately. It saw truck nuts as pylons.
Yeah, I saw that story. Yeah, I don't have much to say other than I thought that was funny.
Is it symbolic or not symbolic?
It's just an accident, really. It's, the system will make other things look like cones as well. Like you might drive by a fence post and it'll show up on the visualization as a cone sometimes. So it's just one of those funny and happy accidents.
I don't understand truck nuts. I understand it as a joke, but I don't understand it as people doing it legitimately. I just, I don't understand it. It's,
I'm not a fan, and it's been going on for a long time now.
Okay. We have your thorough opinion on that. Europe attracted 60 billion euros in investments for electric vehicles in 2019, compared to China's 17.1. So we always think, and maybe wrongly, that China is the leader, but it's actually Europe now that is by far the leader. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, just that, that was probably bound to happen. Like the regulations in Europe are definitely shifting towards clean transportation. So, everyone's being forced to do it. So they're just really catching up. Like China's major investments maybe happened a couple of years ago. And so, Europe, it's just their turn now. So, but investment all over the world is just going to keep going up and up and up. And, every week there's an announcement of some new battery factory or converting a car factory to electric and so on. So it's all good news. It means that Europe is going electric, and that's great.
Can I just say that this is going very well so far? My new segment, the Rapid Fire Round. And kudos to you for having a response to everything I've thrown at you. The next one's going to be a bit more challenging. It's 40% of UK drivers want to drive less to maintain clean air.
Pass.
You're just going to pass on that one.
No.
But I think it's a good chunk of the population that wants to make that sacrifice based on having clean air. With the realization that the lack of driving that's been going on during the pandemic has made clean air, so it's in their minds that it's possible, and maybe we should make some effort to do that.
Yeah, no, I do have an opinion on that. And people are feeling it. People are noticing that air is cleaner, and people want to keep it that way. I mean, realistically, once everything starts opening up and people have to go places, it remains to be seen if they'll actually follow through on these plans to make their transportation cleaner. But having the sentiment to do it, the hope to do it is great. And I'm an optimist, so let's go with it.
Okay, and finally, Ohio may get the first offshore freshwater wind farm. And this is the first I've heard of anything like this. I've only heard of wind farms off the coast of oceans.
Yeah.
Never heard of one on a lake, but the Great Lakes are practically oceans in themselves. Here's the catch, though, and this is Ohio on Lake Erie. The farm must cease operations between March and October to protect birds and bats due to it being located in an important bird and biodiversity area. Okay, so they may not make this because of that restriction, and it's another extreme restriction. However, I have to say that it complements solar. If you're getting all your solar in the summertime, you could add some wind in the winter, especially in a northern place like that.
Yeah, this is really the only problem with wind generation is that these turbines do sometimes interfere with wildlife, particularly birds. So you do have to be careful about where you place them and make sure you're not in the migratory routes of birds. But we talked about last week, so there was that wind turbine project in Ontario that got reinstated due to the court case, right?
Right.
The government, it was almost a complete project and the government was going to cancel it. But they won in court, and so the wind turbines are going to go ahead and be completed. But the part I didn't know, I went after that episode last week, I went and read some news stories about it. And yeah, the government was using bats as the excuse to cancel the project, which I hadn't realized.
They give a flying F, you know what, to bats.
And it's pretty clear they do not genuinely care about the lives of bats.
Cares about bats.
No government cares about bats.
Bats are there to suck
maybe
blood,
the government of Transylvania might care about bats. But anyway. So it remains to be seen. So the Great Lakes Project, are they genuinely concerned about the birds and the bats, or are they just using that as an excuse? I don't know. But the more wind turbines, the better, but you just got to put them in the right place.
Right. I do kind of think that it's legit because, and here's the thing, though. I don't understand why and exactly how wind turbines affect birds, because they're not spinning like a fan. They're so massive that they spin quite slow. Or at least they seem slow from a distance. They might be actually quite deadly when you're close up and you're a tiny bird. I don't know. And I know that that's one of the big, people, even environmentalists say, well, I don't want to hurt any birds. But, if you don't build that wind farm and you have a coal plant or natural gas or even nuclear somehow, I read that nuclear actually kills birds. And I don't know if it's the steam coming up or just the way it's managed or the truck on the highway carrying the waste kills birds. I don't know how they calculate that, but it seems that everything kills birds. House cats kill hundreds of millions of birds. Like it's ridiculous what house cats.
No, it's crazy. The bird population has absolutely crashed over the last 40 years or so. And like I remember, a friend of mine made a film about it. I think it's called The Messenger, and it's about how we should pay attention to the declining bird population. And like one of the examples they cited in the film was that there was a memorial in New York City for a while, where the Twin Towers were.
With the light?
And they created, pardon me?
Sort of beams of light streaking into the sky?
Beams of light. And this was featured in this documentary because they realized that sometimes the beams of light interfered with the birds. Like it would be nighttime and the birds would fly into the beams of light and they would get confused and they would just start circling and acting weird. So they actually had volunteers watching with binoculars and stuff.
Yeah.
And as soon as there was too many birds around, they would shut off the lights.
Really?
Yeah.
And the birds would go about their business.
And then the birds would go about their business. And, the birds crashing into buildings is another huge problem.
Sure.
Like we have all these glass towers and the birds just fly into them all the time. So like there's somebody that goes around downtown Toronto every day and has to sweep up all the dead birds.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? I saw a news report on that many years ago that what a job, like every morning to clean up the birds to pretend it's not happening. What were they doing? They were turning their lights on?
In the buildings?
Yeah, wasn't that helping or something?
There's different things you can do, and you can put different coatings on the glass. But again, in this documentary, like there was one building that was notoriously the worst one that, there was dozens of birds every single day. And, at the time of shooting the film, they had still done nothing to mitigate it. But yeah, you got to start putting stickers on the window or something to give them some kind of a clue, because they think that they can see a reflection of trees and sky in the building, and they just fly into it thinking that's where they're going.
Right. There was a story of a robin attacking a window in Regina because it saw another robin, and it was a male looking for a mate, wanting to dominate and get that other male out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope his beak is okay. But, I think that it's maybe more than the turbines. If anyone listening wants to send us an email, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. Let us know what you know about wind turbines. We're also on Twitter, CLN Energy Show. And SpeakPipe, where you, and this has been done, Brian, people can leave us a voice message. And frankly, it's like having a third host. It adds to the show. It's like having a special guest on the show. So speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. And what else do you have this week?
That's about it for me. So that's it for the rapid fire round, I guess.
Well, I'm bringing back the rapid fire round next week. I think it was a huge success.
Loved it.
Okay. That's important that you love it too, because it puts you on the spot. So,
Yeah.
I'm James Whittingham, and we'll see you next week on the Clean Energy Show, Brian.
Yeah, see you next week.